Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Tatiana Show. It is May 22nd, 2018. I can't believe that this year is going by so quickly, but time marches on. And here we are post-consensus. We survived. Josh didn't even get here. It was quite a mess. So let's start out our show with our usual why the government screws us over conversation.
Oh, man.
You blew so much money trying to get here. I'm
so much money,
crying
man.
on your behalf.
Yeah, seriously. I had Airbnb booked, which was non-refundable, flights booked, everything. And then I rock up with all my paperwork. I'd paid for the ESTA form, which you need to get in with an Australian passport. And they didn't let me in because I had an emergency passport because my Australian passport ran out. I didn't realize. So I got an emergency passport, got the ESTA, everything working, got there. No, with an emergency passport, you can't have an ESTA. You need a visa. And then that takes like 4 weeks to get or 6 weeks. And I'm like, yeah, but it's an emergency passport. How are you meant to get something quickly? Like, it just, and then they just wouldn't let me on the plane. They were like, I'm sorry, sir, you're not getting on this United flight. And yeah, with this really cheesy voice, and I was just annoyed. Anyway, I walked home with my shoulder. And you know what the most annoying part was? I kept on looking on Twitter, and all these people were having so much fun. And I was like, no, damn you. And just the ESTA form kept on running through my head.
Well, anyway. I can give you my breakdown for you and those people that didn't go. First of all, it was way too many people. I'm glad that they had that many people because that's cool that this is, you know, so popular and stuff. And from that perspective, it was very fulfilling. But I don't know a lot of those people, and it's very intimidating to walk around with like all these weird people that you don't know, and then they also look kind of bankerish, and it's like, wasn't I supposed to put you out of a job? Like, yeah. So it gets a little bit weird. But I think that the first of all, the conference is insanely expensive. It's like really annoying. But I think that as far as it went, they were pretty organized. I got to hand it to the consensus team, whoever put it together. It seems like it was well organized. It wasn't a total mess. It was annoying to get in. But yeah, I thought that was cool. And there, I went to a lot of really good parties. So I played at the Zen Cash party. And that was really cool. It was like their 1 year anniversary. I did, Women on the Block out in Brooklyn, and that was cool. Nice. You know, a lady day. And then I kind of played a few songs and they live streamed that. I did a creative tech week thing. I did a conference up at Columbia. So, you know, I was going around, but I really liked the Gem party. And I got to give a props / thank you to Maggie and Anthony and everybody over at Jack's Indie Central, because that boat party was on. It was really, really good. No, you know, sometimes a boat party is like just mildly cool. This was a damn good party, and everybody was having a really great time. I met a lot of nice people. Everybody was in a good mood. They had really good music. Oh, and then the Alchemist team, they did a cool party with Bob Moses DJing one night. That was really fun. So, you know, the parties were on point. I met some really nice people. I was really happy to perform, and I was really happy when it was over. So that's my conclusion.
Well, I got to say, you know, it really had, the whole industry has changed so much. All these just greedy beep. That was a beep there. That was a just in the house now.
Is it good? I mean, well, really, can you take that position?
Look, I would say gravity is also good, except for if you're in an airplane and the motors have gone out. You know, like greed is good in certain ways, but in other ways it's pretty bad as well. And you just get these people that are just so soulless. They, you know, you say, why are you in a crypto? Is it because we're going back to asset-based money? Is it because we're going back to, you know, money that's based on a money that can't be printed out of nowhere into infinitum behind closed doors? Is it because it's not based on debt? No. It's because of mad gains, mate. Mad gains. It's just sort of like, oh.
Well, it reminds me of what we talked about at the 5-year Let's Talk Bitcoin anniversary episode in Chicago, which was, I maintain, one of the coolest events I've been to, mainly because they donated the proceeds to the community and the tickets are really affordable. But, you know, with this new interest comes great responsibility for our community to teach the newbies exactly why we're doing this. And I don't know. I mean, I think it's a little bit closed-minded to, at least I'm trying not to be closed-minded. Just because somebody works in the finance industry doesn't mean that they're a bloodsucker. And there's some cool people there. So we shouldn't be like that. That's not nice. I'm admonishing you now.
No, it's true. And, you know, as we become more mainstream, it is like that. You just get these sort of people. But I think this is why it's important to constantly say, sort of educate the people on the ethos of this thing of what we've created, and not just go in for the massive gains that people are getting. But it's I mean, those are all great. I'm not saying that they're bad, but at the same time, we want to be able to keep promoting the fact that asset-based money is important instead of debt-based money. It's what is really plus the anarchy of having freedom of choosing what currency you use, and having a borderless, permissionless system is also hugely important. Let's not forget that. And so keeping that education flowing is super important.
Well, we've got some education coming today. We've got this math thing coming up. I'm excited to find out what it is. I guess
MathBot, amazing.
You make maths and then you get Bitcoins. So that'll be fun. But first, we're having on Paige Peterson from Zcash, and also my friend. That's all her other category is friend and Zcash. Hey, Paige, what's going on, girl?
Not much. Recovering from consensus myself.
Oh my! Yeah. Are you going to PorcFest, by the way?
I am. I'm participating in a couple things there. I don't even know where it is on the schedule, but I think I'm on like a Ladies of Liberty panel. I think with Stephanie Murphy and some other ladies, and then I'm doing like a crypto party thing on Saturday, I think, which is like teaching people how to use, or just like basic knowledge about internet security tools and things like that.
Oh, I want to go to that. That sounds useful. Although I don't see how that's a party.
Well, it's a old school terminology. So crypto parties are held all around the world. If you go to like cryptoparty.in or .is, something like that, you'll see all these crypto parties all over the world. Oh, really? It's crypto as in like cryptography, not this is like pre-cryptocurrency.
Yeah, crypto. See, there is these two terms. Crypto really does mean cryptography and cryptocurrency, and a lot of people get confused by that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, it's not. I don't see it as a huge deal, but I do have to clarify because I do these crypto parties in southern New Hampshire once a month or once every other month, and some people think it's cryptocurrency only, and they get inundated with all these other concepts, which, you know, it's not a bad thing. But
hey, look, a party should stay a party. What goes on at a party should stay at a party. That's why you need cryptography, folks.
There you go.
So tell us where you came from, Paige. You were working in peer-to-peer networks and mesh networks like 10 years ago or something like that. Sounds fascinating.
10 years ago, well, 10 years ago I was graduating college, so not quite, but once that happened, I went to art school actually, which was a fun transition, but I decided to escape to San Francisco for some reason, and essentially just started looking for different opportunities and jobs out there, and fell into working for a startup called Open Garden, and they made they make a mesh networking application, and then they made
wait, what does that mean
chat.
For people that don't know what
it's basically
what does that mean?
A mesh network is peer-to-peer internet connectivity, so being able to connect, you know, mobile devices directly to each other, or even computers, such that like you can hop to different devices until one reaches the internet itself.
Or you so just get rid of the internet altogether.
You could have just your kind of like a local network where you're not, you know, trying to go to the main internet, and you just have like a local services, maybe like maps, or like a discussion board that you keep within your community. But that's the general idea, is that it's like a peer-to-peer network for connectivity.
We had music sharing back in the day when Napster got shut down, and we had these Pringle packets with antennas all pointed at each other in Sydney, all across Sydney. Actually, we reached from North Sydney all the way to Bondi using a mesh network. It was fantastic, and we could all share MP3s.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things. I mean, they're not super prevalent. They're kind of like a niche thing and like community organized. There aren't like any really successful mesh network businesses. They always seem to be very kind of community oriented. I think there's one that's starting to get established here, like in New Hampshire and Manchester. But
I think we had the gentleman
I haven't really been. Sorry.
We had the guy from Fire Chat on, and that's pretty prevalent now in a lot of, you know, when there's huge demos where they shut down the internet, especially in the Middle East.
Yeah, I know it got really popular during like the Umbrella Revolution thing. That was kind of its.
Yeah, isn't that cool though when you see that? When you see those shots of everyone just holding mobiles and everyone's just communicating, going, you know, screw you, we can communicate without these centralized ISPs. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a good thing. And yeah, so I started working there. I was technically like their first hire as an intern, and then worked there for a few years, and then got super into cryptocurrency, started helping co-organize the San Francisco Bitcoin meetup. So that enabled me to meet like a ton of different people, just like back in the day. This was in 2013 through 2015 or so. And then, so I just kind of went full on cryptocurrency and kind of, you know, kept going on from there. And then eventually, was looking for a new job opportunity, and I had made acquaintance with Zuko, who is the CEO of Zcash company, and you know, we made something work, and now I've been working there for about 1.5 years now.
Okay, so can you tell us what Zcash is if I knew nothing about cryptocurrency, and why somebody would use it? Give me like the very, very basic overview.
Yeah, so Zcash is essentially a copy of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer currency, so that people can send money directly to each other without any middleman. And it's comprised of decentralized nodes that secure the ledger and to make sure everything's kind of valid and all the transactions are valid. And Zcash is a kind of a clone of that. It's a clone of the code base, but it has significant changes that enable privacy to be to be added to the network, while the transactions can still be validated by the nodes. So there's a lot of technical jargon that could be thrown in there, but essentially Bitcoin has, and most other cryptocurrencies have this problem where they don't have this privacy component. All transaction details are public. And Zcash allows for those transaction details to be encrypted, but still valid and verifiable by nodes in the network. So
yeah, for those that don't know, the zero knowledge proofs really came out, God, maybe like 2011, 12, even. It was very early on, and they kept on wanting to put that into Bitcoin, but the core developers saying it's too much stuff. It's too big of change. It'll clog down the system, and so eventually Zcash formed as their own coin as a proof of concept, I guess. And now they're the very own solidified project, doing extremely well.
Yeah, it was well, zero knowledge proofs themselves have been a concept since the 1980s, but the ZK snarks implementation that was developed by Matthew Green and other cryptographers, that started as zero coin, and then that kind of morphed into a more efficient protocol called zero cash, and then that kind of morphed into a even more efficient protocol that Zcash implemented.
Right. Yeah, it's really cool, and I think that the focus on privacy is really something that's super important, especially in crypto. You know, the thing is that government were going to head towards digitizing all money anyway. It's where we were heading, and that's why I was so glad Satoshi came out with a white paper when he did, or she did, is because at that time, we really needed to decentralize this whole notion of digital money. Now, the problem is if we do not have true fungibility in crypto, we're going to head to the similar spot as we were heading when it's centralized systems, but total control of what you're doing, where you're doing, and why you're doing it. So I think having the alternative implementations of a cryptocurrency focused on privacy is so important.
What about the people that say you don't need privacy?
Privacy is a pretty fundamental thing. Like, you don't post your bank account details on Twitter. It's like for businesses, for individuals, for anyone, enterprise, it's like a fundamental thing. There is a little bit of questioning, you know, even from regulators' side, like whether the privacy side of things is good or bad. But they also questioned, you know, the need for privacy on the internet back in the early days. And now it's actually regulated to have privacy in certain circumstances. Like you need to protect your clients, especially if you're like a bank, an online banking. There's certain regulations that you need to comply with in order to you know, maintain those services. So it's kind of just things just need to catch up. And yeah, like privacy is an essential thing. Like you can't expect everyone to be comfortable with, you know, having their personal details or business details open for anyone to see.
It's totally naive. These people that say, "Oh, privacy or anonymity, it's you know, it's just for drug." Like, it's the most naive thing I ever hear when people say that, because really, they obviously have never run a business. You know what, you want all your clients to know where you source your goods from, and know how much you paid for them, and know how much markup you're doing. You want all your
competitors.
Your competitors to know where you're sourcing from. You know, I mean, it's just all ridiculous to say that, oh, it's only for, you know, dodgy stuff. It's really silly. No, it's super important. It's fundamental.
Agreed.
So what happens now? Like, Zcash has been out for a while. Where are you guys at with the project? And, you know, what about all the little offshoots? You know, I'm friends with the Zencash guys. And so what I don't understand with crypto stuff is that, I don't know, if I started copying somebody else's code, that seems sort of like a jerk move. So do people, like, this is actually an awkward question to ask on the air, but do you think that somebody at Zcash that like looks at a fork is like, you guys suck? Like, how is that? How does the interplay work with all those kinds of like offshoots?
Well, Zcash is technically a fork of Bitcoin's code, which adds the ZK snark technology to it. So we took what Bitcoin had and added to it. So hopefully the forks of Zcash code will add to it. I mean, it would be kind of a loss, I would say, if they just forked just so that they could have their own little ecosystem that doesn't really bring anything else. But in the end, you know, we would say that, you know, Zencash people are friendly. They've acknowledged that they attribute Zcash infrastructure to, you know, enabling a lot of what they can do. It's because the Zcash core team develops the infrastructure is what enables the Zencash people to build like the more fancy UI stuff and kind of do more marketing stuff. So, you know, it is what it is. There's always, with open source code, there's always going to be, you know, people playing around with different methodologies, and there's different governance models that maybe other people prefer. But in the end, I think we all want the same thing. So I think, you know, competition isn't a bad thing. It's what kind of pushes us to be even better. So and we've learned a lot, you know, from what Zencash community has done, and at least in terms of governance and we're holding a Zcash conference in Montreal at the end of June, and I think a few of the Zencash people will be there. So it's all good. We definitely
I wasn't specifically
expected that.
Yeah. Well, I guess I just didn't know how it works overall in crypto. I've always found the concept of open source, but the conclusion is that through competition, the market will decide, and it's like put your money where your mouth is.
I think there's just different kind of objectives and paths towards what we're trying to get at. So Zcash company is a company, so we can like maintain kind of a more efficient development and like kind of traditional kind of startup model where we can pay employees every month and like have this very like standard way of developing, and like the people that use Zcash can kind of look to that and know that we're going to have that going forward, whereas other people might prefer more like community oriented governance where things are a little more open and open contributions. Not to say that Zcash company doesn't appreciate open contributions, but in my opinion, it's nice to know that there's like a set core of employees that are being paid every month to maintain this, and that it's not going to kind of be left aside or anything like that. And, you know, there's also other kind of values that you could attribute to. So a lot of what the company's been doing has been focusing on whether or not you agree with this focus. One big accomplishment that we were able to announce last week was Gemini is the most highly regulated exchange in the world, you could say, and they just listed Zcash, which is a big step for kind of this whole privacy and regulation discussion, which I haven't really seen any of the other projects working towards, because they kind of have a more community oriented, maybe anarchist leaning focus. So, you know, just coming at it from different angles, I think is going to be good for everyone.
Cool. I like all that information. I had questions, but now I forgot them. Josh, do you have them?
Do I have them?
No, do you have any?
I don't know about questions, but I do definitely agree that it's an interesting play to see regulators. When I was I was, I guess, shocked to see that Gemini had listed Zcash. It was you know, really quite an interesting move, and I think it's a throwback to what you were saying before, that regulators will start to see privacy as not the enemy, as privacy is an inherent need for any sort of trade to be efficient. Right. And normal, and really, you know, when it comes to crime, what it comes down to is good old-fashioned police work. If there's a crime, bust the criminals. Don't go following every single transaction. Follow the criminals.
Is there any kind of, you know, because there's a lot of these kind of privacy security type tokens and stuff, projects. Is there any kind of coalition who advocates to governments on behalf of, for example, privacy coins? You know, for Perry Ann's organization does some lobbying, but it's not really specifically around that. Is there anything that companies in the space are taking, like any actions in order to make it a little bit less of a hassle on the government side? Because I feel like the privacy coin people are like, F you guys, we don't care. They just don't even try. But is there some sort of an effort to help governments understand the benefit of this to society?
I wouldn't say I am knowledgeable of any specific coalition, I would say. I can say that Coin Center has done a lot of good education. They're kind of good allies to the privacy, the importance of privacy in cryptocurrencies. And I think they've been doing a lot of education in Congress and whatnot. And then also, you know, Zcash company, we've been just open to discussion and education ourselves. So if any regulators are interested in knowing more, then we're happy to like educate them ourselves. But I don't know of any like formal coalition, maybe one day, but yeah. again, I think I agree with your sentiment that most of the other kind of privacy coin communities are very like essentially trying to hide a lot of things that maybe governments don't want them to be. And we kind of see it as just like more of a fundamental, like, you know, privacy is a requirement for financial and most communications. So
yeah, I mean the notion that things can't be taxed in the future because everything's hidden from the state is kind of silly too. I mean, it's really only been the last 20 years where governments have been able to track and trace every bank transfer and transact. You know, most things were done in cash. So taxes have always worked under the threat of, hey, you know, tell us the truth or you can go to prison, or we, you know, point a gun at you and or take you away. So I don't think it's going to change. It's going to go back to that, basically, back to, hey, you know, you better be telling the truth or big consequences. And, you know, so, and I think really there is no other options for cryptos. They will become all private because you cannot have a crypto that follows everything. Machines to machine payments will start happening more and more. There'll just be so much data and so much flow that it really does need to be have that private centric thing. And I think Lightning Network is also showing that it will be fairly private compared to what Bitcoin is now, which is also an interesting move.
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of innovations and experimentations and research in privacy and cryptocurrencies. So, you know, it's good that all this stuff is happening. And again, like it's good that all these cryptocurrencies are kind of competing with each other so that we can find, if not the best solution, then, you know, a few of the best ones, or have a few ones working side by side, so in case one of them fails, then there's like still a backup, so to say.
Yeah, well, Zcash was one of the first to also have investors, old school VCs, invest to start the coin, which I thought was interesting.
No ICO here.
Yeah.
We were it was not in the best interest, I don't think, especially, you know, keeping it a company that's based in the US to do an ICO. That's just very silly, especially with like the question, like back in the day, that was like in 2015 or so, you know, that was still very new and like very unsure how that was going to pan out. And it's still not quite clear what's going to happen with all those.
Yeah.
But yes, old school investors and
how's that working out? Is that a good or a bad thing? Do you think? I mean, I know you're probably a bit biased, so you can't.
They're paying her. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing. They're all very handsome and very slender.
They actually already got their, for the most part, they got their returns back, so they're really happy with. The good thing with, at least for the investors, was that they're getting paid back in part in Zcash. So they essentially, and Zcash launched like 6 months before, you know, the huge bubble basically that started last year. So they've been extremely happy with their returns, so they're all set.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was probably the biggest FOMO around that coin when it launched. It was just insane. Everyone was like, "Whoa, this is going to be huge!" And it, and the day it launched on exchanges, it was like way up, and then it was going crash down, and then it sort of corrected itself to a proper place. But it's always I always find watching these coins as they launch and watching, you know, if they have a really good new technologies, how they actually come to market, what the market thinks of them, and it's always interesting.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of hype before it, and it was not much that we could really do. Just people were really excited about Zcash, and we didn't even have really a marketing person, so it's not like we were pumping it ourselves. It was just like people had heard of Zero Coin and Zero Cash from years earlier, so it just been kind of a part of the cryptocurrency consciousness for a while, and then, you know, having it launch was really exciting for a lot of the community, I think.
So you've been doing a lot of talking and stuff. Where can people catch up with you and see some of your talks? I mean, definitely at PorcFest. You guys got this conference. Maybe you want to plug that or something?
Yeah, so the conference is actually run by the Zcash Foundation, which is kind of like like sibling organization. That's a 501c3 nonprofit. And they're a very new organization, but they're focused more on like community development. And so one of their main projects right now is organizing this conference. I'm helping them do that a little bit. But that's actually the week after PorcFest. So, and that's in Montreal, which is like 2 hours from 2-hour drive from PorcFest, 2 or 3 hours maybe. So that's an opportunity, but it's a very kind of, at least this first iteration is going to be small and intimate. So we ask that people that are interested in Zcash and not, pumping their ICO to look into attending. That's on the Zcash Foundation website, which is z.cash.foundation. And yeah, I'll be at PorcFest. So if any Liberty folks are there, definitely reach out to me. I'll be doing that crypto party on Saturday, and then a Ladies of Liberty panel, I think earlier in the week, and then I'll just be around. Let's see. I don't think I have any. I like to go to meetups and talk to meetups. So I'm more into meetups than like conference style speaking opportunities. So if anyone hosts like a cryptocurrency meetup, definitely, reach out. We're happy to help educate people about Zcash at meetups and do some education there. So
right on. Yeah, I love
Very
meetups
cool.
as well.
We get to hang out, Paige. I'm pumped.
Woo!
PorcFest.
I'm gonna be there all week, so it's like a vacation for real.
Yeah.
I think.
I'm gonna probably still do some work, and but either way, I'm looking forward to seeing you there. I don't know. That's it, right? Final websites? Anything? Yeah. All right.
There's plenty of information on the Zcash website and the foundation website for people to dive in more. So
awesome, rock and roll girl. You're an inspiration to us all.
Yeah, really.
Love you, girl. Cool. Can't wait to party with you. All right, we're going to bring up JW in a minute, but what do you think, Josh? Should we tell everybody about our nice sponsors and how
we have some fantastic sponsors. They just keep flowing in. And in fact, if you would like to sponsor the show, we always have really interesting guests, and we have a lot of viewers, and they're always interested in crypto, freedom, gold, and much more of that sort of ilk. Some of the sponsors we have is, of course,
wait, if they want to do that, this is
if they want to do that.
Second week in a row where we're just blowing this one. If you want to sponsor the show, you can email dave@btcmedia.org. Way to go, Josh. You're like, if you want to sponsor, let's talk about sponsors now.
I love the Australian accent that you got right.
I don't even know. I feel like it's like a messy English accent. Let's give some props to the Bitcoin CPA. Because Kirk is always making my life easier. I'm always talking about taxes. I don't like taxation. I think that it's theft. But if you're going to get robbed, have Kirk help you get the least amount of you taken from you. And doing it in a compliant way so you don't end up in jail.
No, very important, folks. That's one rule that I have. Don't end up in jail. Crypto Compare is also a really cool site. That's Crypto Compare. You can compare all your cryptocurrencies, including gold. They're hooked up to the Vaultoro Gold API. So you can check your crypto against actual assets instead of this filthy fiat that nobody wants. Crypto Compare.
Wait, no, I got to go now. This is not how it works, Josh. Okay, the next thing, first of all, we always want to give a little bit of love to our friends over at freeross.org. Ross is now in court, Supreme Court. That's the stage that they're at. I guess, we're going to find out what that looks like.
Yeah.
It's to have Lynn back on. She's supposed to be a regular hostess with us, and she's only done it so far. So maybe we'll have her on in the next few weeks. And then also I wanted to give some love to Pamela Morgan, who just wrote a book about cryptocurrency and what happens if you croak. So you don't want to die. Of course, none of us want to die. But if we do die, which of course won't happen with us because we'll be eternally youthful through the robot implementation program. For those of you that are planning on dying, don't let your Bitcoins go to waste. get the Crypto Inheritance Planning, A Simple Guide for Owners by Pamela Morgan and Andreas Antonopoulos. You can find it on Amazon. And actually, if you go to Amazon through like the Free Ross website, every time you shop there, if you click on that Free Ross Amazon link, a portion of your proceeds will go. So you can save your family and keep them happy when you're dead, and you can help Ross. So I think that's a win-win.
Yeah, and it doesn't cost you anymore. It's fantastic.
No, it doesn't.
Great. You should go to Free Ross.
I buy everything on Amazon through that link. You're welcome, Jeff Bezos. Take my blood money.
Sovereign Tech.
Yeah, let's give some love to Brian and Stephanie over at Sovereign Tech and Sex and Science Hour. I'm going to send them some questions. They've got some, I haven't been listening to the show in a while, but I've got some questions. Oh, so by the way, people, if you're listening and what do you, I think we're going to have to start having relationships talks on this show. Maybe not relationship talks, but sort of experts. I want to make the show more rounded because I think that, I don't know, man, people are so disconnected. Being at consensus is cool, but you realize just how intense all of our lives have become. And,
I like
and it's a little bit much on the soul. So I'm going to try and have some more people doing that, myself included. I'm gonna bare my soul. Actually, not completely because I'm not crazy, but I don't know. I think people should start talking about their feelings more. What?
With a pinch of crypto still.
No, there will be lots of crypto, but I'm saying, like, for example, I was hanging out with George Burke from Tides. He was on a couple weeks ago with him and Chandra, and he used to do a lot of biohacking stuff. So okay, hack my bio. I want to know what happens. If I like crackers at 4:00, will that make me, a marathon runner in the midnight? I don't know. We're gonna find out. I
hacked my own pacemaker. Did you know that?
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. The doctors couldn't fix it, so I had to fix it myself. But anyway, that's a whole nother story, folks, for another day.
All right, guys. One last thing. Crypto Media Hub. I have a company. If you guys want to promote things or do some PR or marketing, all that kind of stuff, we have a really nice team. CryptoMediaHub.com, and my music's at TatianaRose.com. And now, without further ado, we're going to bring up our next guest.
That is a crappy drum kit.
Yes, that was a really bad drum kit. I thought so. JW Weatherman, he's a software security expert. He's been working with Fortune 500 companies for over 20 years. He wrote the Bitcoin threat model, and he founded BTCthreats.com. He is now the lead contributor on this open source project called MathBot, which at first I was like, this sounds so terribly boring because I don't really like math. Just going to admit right off the bat, but maybe I would like math more if they were giving me cryptocurrency. I think that there's some motivation there. So we're going to learn all about it. And JW, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great. I've listened to your guys' show a bunch of times, so this is a lot of fun.
You have excellent taste in podcasts. By the way, people, subscribe down below or go to the TatianaShow.com. Anyway.
Of course. Nice how could you not?
Yes, how could you not? Cool. So what is this MathBot stuff? Tell me about it. I'm excited. I like incentive programs. So what's happening?
Yeah. So MathBot is a project that I started working on a couple of years ago, and I actually got it to a point where I was putting it in the hands of kids and they were testing it. And it got really discouraging because it's really hard to build a game that's educational that can compete with Angry Birds or first-person shooters. It just doesn't, in hindsight, it's kind of obvious that that's not going to work, right? If you have to try to optimize for just fun, you're going to be able to do a better job at that. And it's already, crazy competitive anyway. And then I got really interested in Bitcoin about 7 months ago. And so I was working on that. And then, I don't know, about 3 months ago, it clicked that if I combine the two, that this could actually work. So the problem we had before is you would have kids playing the robot. And if their parents were involved and interested, they would say something like, all right, well, if you beat all the levels, I'll buy you ice cream, right? And all of those kids learned and just thrived playing the game. But the kids that didn't have that didn't. So the idea that that we decided to go with, and we're testing it out, and it seems to be working really well, is parents have the ability to, let's say, pay $50 for Algebra 1. And then the kids, as they pass levels in Algebra 1, they get paid a couple dollars in Bitcoin every time they pass a level. So our goal is to really have something that starts all the way at counting, goes through calculus, and teaches kids math and programming in a way that's, you know, all carrot and no stick. And we know that we'll be successful when the public school system stops pretending to teach math. I know you hate math, but you probably have not been exposed
once
to
in a while I had a good teacher. Math. Once in a while I had a good teacher and I actually did like it. And I think that there's something to be said for that. But what do you think? I mean, what about not having a teacher? Like, isn't that a little weird about teaching it to them? Like, who do they ask? And do you think that they need the live classroom environment, or do you think just bribing them is enough? It might be. I'm just asking.
Yeah. I mean, I think humans in general, we like to work on problems, right? Like, to say that somebody doesn't like math, that always just kind of kills me, because it's like saying you don't like problem solving or you don't like logic. And I know that can't be true if you have like two eyes and a mouth, because you're a human being and we're just hardwired for that, right? You get a chemical hit like a drug every time you solve a problem. And you have to actually carefully design a system and call it math that removes that chemical hit, right? Like for you to not enjoy problem solving, you really have to make it not problem solving, right? And that's exactly what the public school system has done. So if you set a kid down, even when we were kids, but it is so much worse now. It's infinitely worse with the new Common Core programs that they've rolled out in the last few years. But if you sit a kid down, what you're actually doing, to have an analogy, is it would be like saying, I want you to learn how to use a saw, right? Like a hand saw, to be able to cut wood. And here is a board, and I want you to cut this board at arbitrary positions for the next 2 hours. Just cut it. Just cut again, and then cut again and again. That's absolutely soul sucking, because it's just process and procedure and repetitive and redundant. And there's no chemical hit of satisfaction that you did something that matters. But if you say, hey, I want you to build a bench, and you hand the kid the saw, you show them how to use the saw, and then you build the bench, it's a whole different experience. And building a bench is like math, where you're actually solving problems. Really doing rote work is that's not math.
Yeah, it's a cool analogy. I've often said the problem with public school is that you get, it's so natural for children to want to learn. It's so that you give them anything, they take it apart if it's broken, and they put it back together, and they want to know how it works. You imagine taking something that's so innate to want to learn, putting them in an establishment where they end up writing slogans like "School sucks," right? And I mean, you just think, what's wrong with the system that you can turn something so natural and turn them against that? And it's crazy. So it's great to see software like this that's teaching kids with a gamification plus an incentive through crypto. That's really cool. So what do they do?
Why Bitcoin? Right? Well, because actually, the thing is that other things might have a lower transaction fee, and maybe you could have like an in-house currency and then pay them out with Bitcoin. How far along have you guys gone?
Yeah, I don't think there are actually other cryptocurrencies that are better designed to support more transactions. I think that is, I think that's a lot of marketing. What's going on right now with Lightning, in my opinion, is the first time that any cryptocurrencies have had a design that would allow it to be used for, 1 million transactions per second. I think you could say the same thing about like Bitcoin on the privacy side. I think that it's actually really good for privacy, and that it's getting better. And, open source software is interesting, right? Because if one of the other projects does something that's useful, then the Bitcoin devs, because in my opinion, they're by far the most competent developers in the space, would just incorporate that technology. So I'm confident that will happen. So I can just support Bitcoin. And as soon as something is more than marketing hype, I'm confident it'll show up in Bitcoin.
Yeah, we've been Bitcoin only at Vaultoro.com between Bitcoin and gold for 3.5 years, and we just recently became the first exchange to incorporate Lightning Network payments, and it's so cool to be able to load Bitcoin Satoshis. Like, we've got a limit right now of 100 Satoshis because we're still testing it in beta, but it's there, it's public, it's on the main chain, and it's so wild to like send 100 Satoshis, which is nothing, and not have to wait 6 confirmations. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. Actually, that's why I reached out to you guys, because I saw that you guys enabled Lightning, and I think that's really amazing. But yeah, I mean, really, that's not really our focus on MathBot, right? Like, I'm a software security guy, and I'm into Bitcoin, but with MathBot, the real reason is just that there's overhead to do multiple things. And like I said, I'm confident that I can essentially just outsource all of that work to the brilliant guys that are working on Bitcoin. And Lightning is really, I mean, it is really sexy. It's incredible, right? Like you hit a button and you just immediately
it's sexy.
have it.
Yeah, tell me about your Lightning Network, Daddy.
No, it is super sexy. When you come to truly understand what it is very sexy. So let's say I've got a kid. They're playing up at school. They're not really interested in school because school's horrible. And you can tell there's a spark there of interest about mathematics because when they're at home, they're kind of interested in building stuff and doing things and playing with Lego. But what do they do? You go to the website. How does it all work? Let's run through this.
Yeah. So you go to the website, you sign up, and you just start playing. And if you want, we're still early. We've got the first 13 levels up right now. I think within a week or two, we'll have about 40 levels up. So it's not done right now. We're rolling out more and more levels. And we also don't support payments yet. So being able to reward the kids with Lightning transactions, that's hopefully something we'll have done in the next couple of months. But Lightning's brand new. There's still no iPhone apps, so we feel like we've got a little bit of time before we need to get that all wired up. But right now,
So what is a level? What's level 1?
So level 1 is just being able to walk one step. So one of the things that makes math a lot of fun is that it's never hard by definition. If it's ever hard, it's just a symptom of having a bad teacher, because math is always just like one logical step after another. And so what we do with MathBot is when you log in, you'll see a little robot. And you only have 4 commands. You have turn right, move forward, and that's actually, at first, you only have 2 commands, just turn right and move forward. So the very first level, you just use the command to move forward. It slowly builds and you just continue to add layers of abstraction to the point where you're navigating a maze. So you start up in one corner and you've got to get the robot to move around. And in doing that, you end up writing, for example, a function to turn left, because we don't give you a function to turn left, but you can turn left if you turn right 3 times. So it's very, very slow and incremental. But it also, in the background, is a completely functional programming language. It's all built on Scala, so you can have 5,000 nested commands and or more, and do some really crazy stuff. But it's very slow and it slowly builds. So the first few levels are all about just being able to move the robot around. Eventually, you're picking up objects that represent like a cat, or like a box of cats, or a box of 100 cats, right? So you start learning the 10-base numbering system. And then you can manipulate those boxes and move them around. So if you were doing something simple like 9 divided by 3, you would program the robot to go pick up 9 objects and then put them in 3 equal piles, and then count the number of objects in one of those piles. So it's very slow and it's very incremental, but it gets really, really powerful really fast. Eventually, you're able to zoom out, and not all this stuff is released yet, but we've got it in pre-production and we're doing some user testing. When you first start out, the robot is on a grid. So he's on a grid that's basically 10 by 20, and he can move around and navigate the maze. If you can kind of imagine zooming out to where you had maybe a grid that was 1,000 by 2,000, that starts getting at like the pixel level. And so you can have a robot that was walking around actually graphing like a sine wave. And so it starts really small, but it does get up to some pretty amazing stuff, just very much step by step.
Yeah, I remember when I was at school, when I'm showing my age here, but there was a game called Logo, which was sort of a programming. It was this sort of, I think it was called Logo. And it had a turtle that would sort of move around, and you'd sort of program it to move left and right. And it really got me fascinated into computer programming. So I think this is on the same ilk, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the basic idea is you're solving math problems, but it's just a problem to the kid. Like, you don't know that it's really a math problem. It's just a problem. It's a puzzle. And they have to learn a certain amount of math and a certain amount of programming in order to accomplish solving that problem. So the problem is like the bench, and the math and the programming is like using the saw and using the hammer. So you learn those things incidentally to being able to get the robot where he needs to be, or have him set a certain number of objects in a stack or something along those lines.
Right on. Love it. I love it. So how do people get in touch? How do people get their kids starting to learn programming plus have fun, plus earn crypto all at the same time. I mean, this is heaven to me, folks. I gotta say.
Awesome.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, just go out to mathbot.com and click sign up and play a couple.
And people can start using it right now?
Yeah, you can play the levels right now while we're on air and tell us if you like it, Tatiana.
Okay. I don't know if I'm going to play any video games. Math is not my strong suit, but maybe I'll give it a shot after the show.
It is. I promise. If you play it and you can't figure it out and you don't find it enjoyable, then I have work to do because it's not your problem.
Awesome. Well, listen, this has been really cool. What can people do to support you? Just try it out. I mean, are you guys looking for partners or what's the plan?
Yeah, actually, I mean, it's an open source project, so we're always looking for developers, web developers, anybody that has an interest in the Scala programming language, especially. But like right now, we'd really like to do our front end or just our simple marketing page and throw on a little bit more content and a vlog or a blog and stuff like that. So if anybody has any technical interest on working on an open source project at all, even if they're just doing graphic design or they're into game design, hit me up at Weatherman I am on Twitter. That's the easiest way to reach me. But yeah, that's the main thing that we're looking for is just more interested people that will help us build it a little bit faster. Somebody to enable lightning payments over the next couple months so the other devs can focus on levels would be awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Nice one, JW.
Awesome.
Really, really excellent. Well, there you go.
That's it. Tatiana. The end of the show. I think this was a good day. Post consensus, pre Cryptolina, pre all these other conferences that are coming up. So yeah, if people want to come and see me at some shows or anything, I feel like maybe this would be a good time to mention it. I'll be down in Cryptolina in June. I'm going to be doing PorcFest, I think. And there's all different kinds of things on TatianaMoroz.com getting added all the time, or on CryptoMediaHub.com. Going to be at a few different events. So if people want to find out about those, just shoot me an email, Tatiana@CryptoMediaHub.com. If y'all want to hang out with Josh, trade your gold and your Bitcoins, go to Vaultoro.com. And then I guess we'll be back next week.
We sure will be. Exciting. Thank you very much, JW.
Love you. I'll see you soon. Bye, everybody. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Bye.